and to discern what's reality from what's fake, from what's artificial, from what's manipulated. And that's a danger.
And getting worse because of technology.
Exactly, and that's the danger for future generations until they actually get to learn that. That's why I'm saying it's great that kids do projects at school, but they have to learn how to look beyond Wikipedia, as they say. For example, the publishing industry, which is books and magazines, they're in crisis ever since the internet came in. Because, why? Everybody is going onto the internet. Nobody's buying magazines. How many magazine shops do you see on the streets? I mean,
print newspapers going out of business.
How many of those do you see? How many newspaper stands do you have here in Key Biscayne?
I don't even think New York Times realizes, or Washington Point.
I mean,
who realizes that? Maybe you all will agree with me on this. That when you go to Washington Point, that they're so dumb, they're so ridiculous, they're so hung up on themselves that they let you read one online article before they ask you to pay for the second and the third. Yeah. So what do? You just leave them entirely. Yeah. You're not going to take the time to swipe your card. Their articles are not that good for me to stop, pull out my wallet, pay for the article. Oh, my God. Yeah. I mean, it's just, please. So what they're doing is losing readerships. Miami Herald. You go into Miami Herald online.
You're not reading Miami Herald.
I don't. I haven't read the Miami Herald since the Brothers to the Rescue shoot down.
I mean, Tom and Jerry comic strip is much more instructional.
Yes.
You learn much more with them.
The Miami Herald is for American Cubans like myself and Cuban Americans like my parents. We gave up on them. Most of us really gave up right around Ilian when Ilian. And CNN's going to do something on Thursday. I hope I remember to watch it or have it recorded. I'm going to see what CNN spin's going to have on the Ilian. It cost Al Gore his presidency.
What's that? 20 years ago?
Yeah, when Al Gore it was 2000, just before 2000.
Oh, almost 20 years ago.
I think it was 98, I would say, 99. It was fresh in our minds for us to cost Al Gore his presidency because if you remember, George Bush won in Florida over the hanging Chads, but it was Miami-Dade County who refused a recount.
Correct.
And we weren't going to recount. Why? Because we knew this town was going to steal and ballots were going to disappear in the recount, literally in the Miami River. And sure enough, it was, I think the difference between Gore and Bush was like 80-something the night of the election, only 80-something votes. But when they did the recount formal after Bush took office, they decided to formally recount. And I think the number grew to like 500 and something. But still, had Miami-Dade recounted, and I got to hand it to Alex Pinellas, who was our mayor at the time, county mayor. He's the one that stood up at the elections office when the chains wrapped around the doors saying, if you force me to recount, there's going to be blood out here, and it's going to be blood on the United States' hands. Because they knew that the Cubans were super, super pissed off because Al Gore's associated with Clinton, Clinton's associated with Janet Reno, and Janet Reno sent the feds to free Leon from the adopted parents, foster parents that pretty much guaranteed the boy's safety to not be returned to Cuba. And for us, as much as people want to argue this point, returning a boy whose mother has died, whose father wanted him safe and sound in the United States, and only until Fidel knocked on his door did he say, he started shooting birds in Washington, D.C., coming out of the embassy, the Cuban intersection over there, shooting birds in the home of the ambassador to Cuba, which at that time wasn't called an ambassador. But anyway, the Cuban ambassador, he steps outside and shoots birds at the press. I mean, he made the Castro Cubans look like a bunch of filthy little dogs that many of us believe Cuba has become. Filthy, no manners, full of...
Excuse me, but which country still has manners?
Well, that gets me to shut up because I couldn't tell you. I do know that...
On the western side.
That I'm losing... I slowly lost the narrative of what I was talking about. But nevertheless, now that we're speaking to Elian, I think we should change the subject to your opinion about something you know a lot about, which is your life in Spain. What is going on? What is the ramifications? What do you think actually will happen to the voter in Spain? Will they continue going left, as they did when they were bombed? Remember when they voted for Zapatero after the train bomb, literally the day before the election? What are they going to do about this now? There's Muslims all over Spain, and you heard the Islamic speech that I can't read because I think I sent it to you. didn't I send it to you? Maybe you can open your phone and read it out loud. Why this sheikh, terrorist freak, mullah, I don't know if he's a mullah or just a sheikh, why he thinks that all eyes and all hands on deck to overthrow, to attack Spain first, because through Spain they can get the rest of Europe. Because he gave a bunch of reasons why Spain is the weakest of all the European nations,
Yes,
and
that's known to everybody.
yeah, so it's so the Spaniards are in agreement. He says that's he uses terrible excuses that may be true and very upsetting for the Spaniards, is that Spanish women love sex and drugs way more than all the other European women. How about that?
Right.
And
That's propaganda.
That's propaganda.
No, getting to the point. Spain is a very specific country geographically speaking. It's the most western country in Europe. It's at the tip of the Mediterranean Sea, where boats go in through the Suez Canal over to Somalia and then cross over to Asia.
Oh, I thought you were to talk about the Gibraltar, which is only 9 miles.
Yeah,
that's only 9 miles wide.
Yeah, that's just the Gibraltar is a former British colony, free land or whatever they want to call it, which Spain, certain people want to recover. But here the important point is talking briefly about the Spanish history, why the people are how they are, and how Spanish youth is changing their mentality and growing in a different manner than their forefathers.
But they won't even enlist in the Spanish military.
No, they don't have. It's professional military nowadays, and nobody goes voluntarily unless you have a specific career, possibly in engineering, or you have former military or Navy officers.
So they hire everybody in Spain?
Yes, you're hired just like here. You're hired when you didn't go enlist into the army or the Navy or the Air Force.
No, but okay. So I'm not saying you have to be drafted. I know ours is volunteer, but over there it's volunteer too. And
yes.
No, for a minute there I thought you were implying that they were mercenaries.
No. So basically, Spain, because of all its history, all the different civilizations that have gone through it, and what it has undergone historically, ever since the beginning of the 20th century, considering its Third Republic, then the Civil War, prior to Second World War, the dictatorship until 1975, and then the opening, the radicalization to the left after the strict dictatorship of General Franco, and then the monarchy imposed by Franco, which many, and thanks to that former king, Juan Carlos I, have made Spain what it is nowadays, independently with all the corruption cases and all that.
Now you're saying that Franco gave back the power to the king when he was passed.
Monarchy at his deathbed, basically. He said, "After me comes the king." Full stop. And then
let him decide what we do with Spain afterwards.
Exactly. So, and he instructed the king, gave him military education, gave him also political education, and so forth. So the mentality of the people, when I grew up and realized how people are, the Spaniard per se, one can consider, is anarchist. Point number one. And he's socialist. Why? I don't know. But that's their nature. Then,
okay, now anarchism, as anarchists, you believe that is 20%, 40%, 50%?
I don't know percentages, but...
More than the majority.
I do know for a fact that when Juan Carlos was the king, many people, because of his natural way of being close to the people, of being a bonachon, of being a guy from the streets, if you want to call it, people liked being... not only seen, because anybody who's, even those people who are anti-monarchist and they have a picture where, they had a moment where they shook the king's hand, they have that picture at the entrance of their house.
Oh, for sure.
I mean,
who wouldn't?
Who cares?
Nah, it's a tremendous honor.
Honor for whom? For him or for you? Well, in any event.
Royalty, if they set an example, it's an honor. Because you need to have, the problem is when the royalty doesn't set an example, then what good are they?
Okay. We're all human beings. We will have flaws. And
now, if you're envious of a king,
exactly,
you're pissed off about them being bluer blood than you, and all the ancestral stuff that it's gone on with royalties, then you can have a situation like France where they just cut their heads off and exile all the kings, and then guess what? What is France? What has France benefited from not having royalty? It's a fantastic moneymaker. It's a fantastic tourist draw.
No, France is more broke than Spain.
Well,
but they don't say it.
But they shouldn't have gotten rid of their king.
They censor the press. No, they have a president on top of the president of the republic. So, no, France
should have a king.
France is a different case. Thanks to the French Revolution in 1789, 14 Juillet, we nowadays we all benefit from being actual free people. Just like back in the Roman days, that you had free people and everybody else was slaves.
I don't agree
Thanks
with you.
to the French Revolution.
I
yes.
don't agree with you.
Thanks to the French Revolution.
You're going on your You're going on your colonization trip again.
Come on, man! You were a colony. You're half Cuban, so you're part of the Spanish colony.
Colony, absolutely.
Sorry.
And quite frankly, Spain should have kept Cuba because you wouldn't
La
have.
joya de la corona, chico. That's why.
Más se perdió
who's
en Cuba, dicen los españoles.
Who's doing business with Cuba nowadays? Not the U.S.
No one does business
and
with Cuba.
everybody else. Oh yes.
Who's getting swindled by Cuba?
The whole Europe is doing
Who's
business with
getting
China's
swindled?
doing business with Cuba.
And they're getting
Europe
ripped off.
is doing business.
And they're getting ripped
Well,
off.
Let me say something.
All those Hotel Melias,
Now you're gonna go
all
into it.
those Hotel
Now let
Melias
me say
are
something. You're
broke
gonna
and
love this.
stolen
You're gonna love this.
by the Cuban government
You
after the
mentioned-
Spaniards invested.
You mentioned the
Millions.
Kennedy's family a week ago or something like
Whose
that. Well,
family?
Kennedy's. You know that
That-
JFK?
Yes, I know.
Well, JFK, he used Switzerland as an instrument to negotiate or talk to or with the Cuban government back in the day. And Obama, when he started the negotiations with Cuba, I believe it was in 16 or 14 openly, that negotiation through Switzerland was terminated. So it was a direct communication U.S. with Cuba. And wouldn't you prefer to take care of your backyard yourself and not someone else?
I would, if I were to agree with everything you said, perhaps. But if you think the United States needs Switzerland to speak to Cuba, they only do that as a comfort zone. The truth is, the CIA and the
History
Castros,
proves
they text each other every freaking day. If you don't think for a moment the CIA has been running an experiment of over 60 years in Cuba, you're smoking something. Over there in
Different cigar, brother?
yeah, in Deerfield Beach, okay? The United States and the government of Cuba have been playing this good cop, bad cop thing for a long time at the expense of the Cuban people. The problems
So
began.
we're waiting for another second revolution when the people.
Never.
Yes.
It's Alcatraz. It's over.
But you
it's
yourself,
over for Cuba.
with all your principles, with your book, what you say that the people have to get back the power. The people have to get the power from the
I'm not saying
politicians which
that.
are sent to Washington.
No,
right?
that's generic thinking
I'm
inside
just-
the box.
I'm just talking about.
I'm outside the right side of the box.
Okay. Within
Just
the right
outside
box,
it.
Within the right box, inside of it, you always say that we are local state government.
We're United
who
States
who appoints our
For
senators-
America, not of
Exactly.
America,
Who-
as the
who appoints our
leftists, they
senators
misuse the word
towards-
of.
Exactly. Who we appoint our senators towards Washington.
They should have.
We
We
are
have
the ones-
repealed, we took
Correct.
away that with Amendment 17.
Okay. And what I'm saying now,
And we've been broke ever
that
since.
revolution of bringing that power back, that's a revolution.
It won't
Without-
happen in Cuba. It's over.
I'm talking about here. When you want...
There's no
this,
need for a revolution here. All we need in this country is to
Then
get...
why hasn't it happened? Why hasn't it happened? Tell me. Come on.
Because there's no need for revolution here.
No, but you want to bring back...
The
for
revolution
people.
just happened. You just saw it.
You
The,
want
the
to bring
election
it
of
back
Donald
for the
Trump.
people, but you
In
just
Cuba,
said, no.
there's the only thing that could save Cuba now is for the United States to develop the base that is Guantanamo into the most beautiful shining city on the hill that once it's built, which
Nice
would
hotels.
with I'm not necessarily saying hotels because the hotels are already there.
And
But
Guantanamo?
in Guantanamo there's a hotel, there's also a university, there's also McDonald's, there's also all these things. Okay, I believe in developing, just like the Greeks in Cyprus turned Cyprus into a port and then expanded 2 military bases, one British, one Greek, and expanded Cyprus so to the point where it's 80% Greek and only, 20-30% Muslim, and that's ghetto of Cyprus. Now it's a banking center. It was famous for collapsing when the Russian oligarchs collapsed the Cyprus currency. Before I go down that rabbit hole of Cyprus, it occurred in 1959. At the same time, Castro came to power. That can be done in Cuba and Guantanamo. And one day, maybe, in a dream of all dreams, I'll be in the hole, I'll be more than dead, I'll be tieso. Maybe it could be the future of Cuba if we develop it as American citizens for veterans, by veterans.
But will Cuba be like Puerto Rico?
GitmoFreeZone.us. Google it. It's one of the chapters in thefiscals.com. GitmoFreeZone.us. 128 square miles of full redevelopment using Article 4 of the Treaty of Relations. Just enforcing it alone gives us the right to redevelop the base if the Cuban government cannot control its waterborne diseases, and they can't. That's already been established. I believe it was August. My book will correct me, but I guess